All right, welcome back to the E-Team Sponsor Podcast. I'm Sean Connors, co-founder and CEO, and we're back on the Lead to Win podcast with one of our favorites, Coach Frank Allocco. He is a esteemed basketball coach, leader in the athletic industry. He's the pride of New Providence, New Jersey. He's a former University of Notre Dame football scholarship earnee, varsity football and basketball while at Notre Dame. He's had an illustrious career coaching high school basketball here on the West Coast, out here in California, as well as founding Excel basketball camps, has gone on to win numerous high school National Coach of the Year awards, has been a part of basketball clinics, organizations, The Winning Edge, working with basketball programs from the professional ranks through college and high school. And Coach, we're really excited to have you on today. Thanks for joining us.
Well, it's great to be here, Sean. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, you got it. You got it. Well, Coach, first of all, hopefully this finds you and your family, everybody healthy and safe. How are things going in the Allocco household?
Oh, it's great. You know, I've been using this downtime, I guess you want to call it, to just zero in on a few things. You know, I've been taking Spanish lessons, so I've got 170 some days in a row now I haven't missed. Working on my golf game a little bit, and just, trying to use the time and just not waste it, try to stay healthy and keep moving around. Because I think when you have all this time just to be alone, you have a tendency just time to just sit and watch television. So I'm trying to really focus on trying to get better and work on some things and stay active.
I love it. Sharpening the saw, speaking Spanish, and getting out and working on the golf game. That's awesome. I guess golf, that's one of the few things we can get out and still do. So that's great. Awesome to hear, Coach. Right. Awesome to hear. Well, good. Well, Coach, hey, we'll jump right in. I mean, we've known obviously you for a long time. You've come in and spoken to our team here at E-Team Sponsor back in I think it was beginning of 2019. Came in for our kickoff meetings and delivered a great presentation to our team to help motivate us. I know many of our team had your little business card cut out with the quote about excellence on it, and people had it, on their cork board in the office, or they had it taped to their laptop. So I know you've been able to make a great impression amongst our team, me personally, and really excited to share a little bit more about you and your travels in the world and how we might be able to educate and empower some more people today. So again, thanks for coming on. Coach, we talk a lot about leadership, and I think especially in today's world, I feel like there's leadership vacuum. There's a great opportunity for people to lead right now, and I think there's still a lot of people that are trying to figure out how to lead. How do they lead themselves? How do they lead others? We'll jump off there, Coach. Leadership. What does leadership mean to you? Who have been some of your most influential leaders in your life, and maybe tell us a little bit about how you've chosen to lead, especially now through this the last 6 months of this challenge in the pandemic that we faced.
Well, I've been very blessed to have had good leadership my whole life, and I think that's really important to have great leadership. If you don't have it, to seek it. Go out and try to find the mentors that you need that can help advance you. And I think really great leadership are people that don't only say the words, they live the words. They model it for people. And so I was blessed to have a mother and father that, have done that their whole life. My father was a volunteer fireman for 67 years. My mother's 91 years old, still makes sandwiches to feed the homeless in New Jersey, so really had wonderful models who not only, said the words, but they lived them. And then, to go to high school, I had great high school coaches. And when I went to Notre Dame, Coach Ara Parseghian was one of the greatest mentor models of all time. A guy who definitely lived the words. I like telling the story of, him coming in the Orange Bowl in 1972 after losing to Nebraska 40-6, and Coach walked in a locker room and said, "Gentlemen, I want you to remember this as long as you live. Adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which under prosperous conditions might have remained dormant." And he walked out of the room. That was his post-game talk. And that saying, adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which under prosperous conditions might have remained dormant, became our battle cry. And from the depths of, a real bad year for Notre Dame in the 70s, when we were really very, very, very good, that became our battle cry. And the next year won 11 straight games and won the national championship. But I always like to tell, the real rest of the story, as Paul Harvey would have said, the rest of the story was, 22 decades later, when his grandchildren were struck with this awful disease, and Coach Parsegian left the broadcast booth and gave everything up to try to find a cure for this disease, Niemann-Pick C syndrome, which affects neurological disease. It affects the body's ability to process cholesterol, and it's really an awful, fatal disease. And Coach gave everything up to try to fix this. And I remember having dinner with him one night, and he was telling me the story, the tragic story of finding out that 3 of his grandchildren had this disease. And he told me, he said, I can't fix it in my family. You know, I can't save my grandchildren, but I'm going to dedicate my life that no parent, no grandparent will ever experience the pain we have. And I said to him, sort of like adversity has the effect of eliciting talents which under prosperous conditions might have remained dormant. And he said, lit up. He said, I taught somebody something, you know. And so if you only knew, I mean, there's just so many of us that were blessed to, you know, to learn under him, not only players, you know, the South Bend community, the national community that watched the way this man operated with class and with elegance. So when you talk about leadership, I think that really is a key component of it, not just saying the word, but being an example to the people that look up to you.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, it's, you know, Coach, I think to hear somebody that has really set aside, you know, in Coach Parsegian's example, being able to set aside, hey, I'm gonna essentially set aside, give up what I'm focused on right now for the benefit of others. That's an incredible story. Coach, you've you know, in your current role, you're at the University of San Francisco. You're in the athletics department. You got a couple different titles there in terms of what you're doing. Talk to us about how the last 9 months, or call it 6 months or so, how have you chosen to lead during this time, and, you know, compared to maybe how things were previous to the pandemic starting?
Well, you know, I think in every adversity, there's opportunity. And when you look at, you know, what it's done from my particular perspective, I work with external relations. So that's really the ticketing, the marketing, the donation, the sponsorship side, anything involving the public. And obviously there hasn't been a public. So, you know, we're looking at this time to sort of fix the infrastructure and align everything so things are working together, just like you would in coaching. You take your off season, right, and try to build something. We have a new ticketing system we're pretty excited to kick off. You know, we've fixed some of our alumni clubs and doing other things, and we're just getting it rolling. Obviously, with the COVID preparation, trying to bring student athletes back to campus, there's a very rigorous protocol for COVID-19 that we are following to make sure that our student athletes stay safe and providing them with an opportunity to do the things that they do love. So I do think they're, you know, again, once again, in adversity, there's opportunities. And I think that's what I've been doing for 9 months, is just trying to create the infrastructure so then things get rolling, we're ready to go.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that too internally, Coach. You know, coaches talking to them about, you know, seek out the opportunity through this adversity. Great words of wisdom there. Coach, you know, on to our next question. Obviously, a very successful and illustrious coaching career. You had the opportunity to coach not just some great high school basketball players, but you are involved with a number of different basketball organizations, from the professional ranks through the college ranks. And, you know, just an incredible story of where you've been able to travel. I mean, gosh, not all over this country, but all over the world. Really incredible. Through those learnings, we'll go to our next question. If a man or a woman walked onto campus today and said, hey, Coach, I'm going to take over a program for the first time, what would you share with them? And how would you share what you think is important for them in building a basketball program?
Well, I think the first is tradition. You know, you have to create a tradition. People want to be a part of something. You know, that's why we have all these different teams, and people feel very strongly about the organizations that they belong to. So there's a real need for humans to want to be a part of something special. And so I think, you know, when I got the Northgate job, the first thing I did was go back to Notre Dame. And I was able to get access to a lot of things because of my, you know, being a former player. I went into the locker room and I actually copied down some of the signs, you know, in the locker rooms and tried to build that tradition. I think Notre Dame's one of the best places in the world for just everywhere you walk on the campus. There's something that's important, from the Tom Dooley statue to the letter from Father Soren overlooking the Twin Lakes. I mean, you're going to stumble upon a history. And I tried to do that, you know, right away, is go back. I mean, I actually, you know, a little crazy. I actually went to the library and I looked up every game that Northgate ever had played. And I wrote the box scores down because they didn't have a history. And so I created the all-time leading scores by just taking, I knew that they played on Fridays and Tuesdays. So I went in there and I made these little charts and kept the statistics so I could create the history that had been lost. And so our kids felt like they were really a part of something. And so everything we did really had a reason for it. So I think creating a tradition is very important. I also think you have to have your core values. And I've really never strayed from that in coaching. And basically it's discipline, love, and sacrifice. That we've really asked our kids to, have the discipline to do things the right way, not do things that would take away from the team. I had them put on their mirror, what are you going to do today to win a state title? So you approach your day with, what can I do to get better? How can I make our team better, and have that discipline to stay true to that course? And obviously love, I think people really don't give love enough credit, for how powerful of a force that can be. I mean, you hear stories of a woman whose child gets run over by a car and the woman picks up the car. I mean, how does a 120-pound woman pick up a car? Because that's the most important thing in the world to that woman. And that strength just comes from that. And so I think if things are really important to you, there's a whole different level that love can bring you to in terms of your own power and your own abilities to get things done. And the third, of course, is sacrifice. What are you willing to do for your friends? I mean, that has always been at the core of any organization I've ever been at, even at USF. When we talk about the team that I work with in external relations, is what are we willing to do for each other? Are you willing to put in the extra hours? Are you willing to put in extra time? And then there's also an expectation that if I'm willing to do this, are you willing to do it for me? I remember a great story when I was at Northgate. My son was a pretty good player, played for me, and he was an outstanding player, and he was a great competitor. I mean, he's not the most athletic guy in the world. He's 5'9". He doesn't jump very well. He's not very fast, and not very quick. I took after his mother, by the way. But no offense to my wife. But Frank was, the one thing he was an unbelievable competitor. He's one of the most competitive people I've ever been around, and he really embodies all those things we talked about being a great teammate and discipline, love, and sacrifice. And you give these messages to kids, and you're not sure if they're getting it, but one day I would say that we always did these drills, and if you won, you got to do push-ups and sit-ups, and if you lost, you had to run a set of lines. Now, there's a good sales job for you. But, Frank very rarely lost. I mean, he probably lost, less than 10 drills in his 4 years there. His teams just won. That's what he did. And there was a drill where there was a loose ball. His team was up 1 point with about 5 seconds to go, and there was a loose ball rolling down the court. And one of his teammates ran over and kind of bent down to pick the ball up. Well, the guy from the other team dove on the loose ball and flicked it to somebody else. He threw it the length of the court. They made a layup at the buzzer. And so Frank's team was walking to the line to do their run. The other team was walking to do their push-ups and sit-ups. And I overheard Frank say to his teammate, he said, "Why didn't you dive on that loose ball for me?" And the boy didn't answer him. And Frank said, "That's a question that requires an answer. Why didn't you dive on that loose ball for me?" And the boy didn't answer. And he said, "I know you're new here." He said, "But I want you to know that there's nothing I wouldn't do for you. I will dive through that wall. I will run into that stone column. I will do anything I can to help you be successful. Now, can I count on you to do that for me?" And as he walked away, I said to myself, we got it. Now we've got that mentality, and it's coming from the kids, not from me. So when your team embraces it and holds each other accountable and lives the standard and monitors the others doing it, you're going to have a successful team.
Do you feel like that, Coach, if we can unpack that a little bit, that's an incredible story. And I remember very many challenging games against Northgate. I didn't play basketball, but when we were at Clayton Valley, you guys gave it to us quite a bit. And Frank, you're right, was an incredible high school player. Coach, what was it, or when did you see the program turn the corner when it came to that, where the student athletes really took that ownership of those core values of discipline, love, and sacrifice?
I think that's a great question, because I know at Northgate that first team embraced it. They really did. And I remember, my first days there, we played outside. We didn't really use the gym in the beginning because we were trying to create this Eastern mentality that we play on the playground, and we're tougher, we would say those guys actually practice in the gym, we practice outside, And I remember clearly, giving these kids a speech, I said, we are going to be state champions here. I don't want you to think about league titles. We are going to, and this is a team that hadn't had success for many, many years, right? But we went in with really high vision. And I remember pointing to Castle Rock Road, and I said, boys, look over there. I said, that road's going to be packed someday. It's going to be a traffic jam of people trying to come to watch you play, to see this greatest turnaround that's going to occur. And, I gave this wonderful speech about that and told them how we were going to do it, what the plan, shooting plan and lifting weights and individual development, all the things we were going to do. And I remember, one of the boys raised his hand and he said, Coach, can I ask you? I said, anyone have any questions? And this boy raised his hand and he said, have you ever coached before? And I said, yeah, I coached UIO for 15 years. And he said, well, did you ever coach high school or college? And I said, no, I coached CYO for 15 years. And he said, is anybody going to help you? And it was the first time I thought, hey, am I up to this job? But my words were prophetic because it was packed. And I can look back at some of those films of Northgate playing San Ramon. We always had great battles with John Rayner's team. John was an exceptional coach, and he had Mark Matson on his team. And we have film of that place being packed. We have people standing on people's shoulders looking through the windows of the gym. It really did build something very, very dynamic. But that first group got it started. They went from 7-19 to 22-8, that first season. And then it went to 29 wins and then to the 30s. And all of a sudden, we're doing incredible things and, winning NorCal championships, et cetera. And I think the challenge of going to De La Salle was similar, a little tougher because they had some success. Yeah. But, the same thing we talked about, we're not going to talk about league titles. We are going to elevate our goals and make them higher and shoot for the stars. And it was a sales job, quite frankly, to get the kids to work as hard as we needed them to work. But once they, I think the whole key to improvement is realizing that you have to. And once we were able to convince them that they weren't quite as good as they thought they may have been, and they bought into improvement, those kids worked incredibly hard. So the success really came from the buy-in, and it comes to that point where you start to believe. I know at De La Salle it was a rocky road. I think we lost 3 of our first 4 games. And, we were able to beat, Drew Gooden was playing at, El Cerrito, terrific player. And, we had a huge win over them. And we just really stepped up defensively. And I think that was really a nice takeoff point for us. And also, we had a young freshman player that came in and took over the point guard spot, Joe C. And I think we ended up winning like 22 straight games. But again, it really isn't so much the players as it was the buy-in to each other and what they could do as a team. They always bought into the strength of the team, and each kid was able to put himself second for the good of the team, not worry about personal numbers, et cetera, just worry about the success of the team.
That's really incredible to hear. I think as any high school or high school coach, college coach, for that matter, that's listening, I think they can take a lot from that. And it'll lead me to my next question in terms of, you're building these programs, and for those of you that are listening that don't know, Northgate's a small public high school here in the East Bay of Northern California. For those of you that have heard of De La Salle, obviously, actually literally down the road. I think Northgate might be the second closest public school to De La Salle. In both programs, I'm sure, Coach, definitely different adversity, that you would face at both, with both programs might be a little different. But I guess I'll expand that too, just from an adversity standpoint. When, as a leader, when you face adversity and you're leading, in this case, young men, whether it be in your role at Notre Dame as a player, coaching, your current role at USF. Talk to us about those core values. What core values, what foundational principles did you lean on to get you through that adversity? And maybe what's maybe that one single most important core value that you feel like you have to go back to when adversity hits?
We're all lifelong learners. And I think, the minute, I always think humility is a funny thing. Once you think you've got it, you've lost it, right? And so you want to be humble. And sometimes you think, even as you get older, you think you have all the answers and you need that jolt to bring you back to reality. And I had one, I owned a publishing company, and the company was doing very, very well for many years. And then we struggled for a year. And quite frankly, one of the reasons we struggled is my attention to basketball. I was putting in so much time at De La Salle. This is around 2000, the year 2000. And we were really struggling. And I remember calling my high school coach and telling him, I've got a problem. I've got debt. I've got credit card debt. I've got all these things because I really wasn't really staying on top of it. I wasn't really running it. And so I went on this big, sympathy session with my coach, telling him all my problems. And when I was done, he said, so you told me you had a problem you wanted to talk about. When are you going to tell me what your problem is? And I said, Coach, what do you think I've just been telling you? I'm on the brink of bankruptcy here, and he said, so it doesn't sound like you have a problem to me. He goes, just do what you've been doing your whole life. Just go out, work everybody. First of all, go run your business. That's what you do, take ownership and leadership of it. And I did, I really went back. In fact, I went to the De La Salle kids and said, hey, I need your help. This summer, I've got to just lock in on my business. I need you to work on your game. I can't be around as much as I typically would be. And I pulled all-nighters. There were some nights when I worked 3 days in a row with ever going home without sleep. But we got the business back on track, and my coach, taught me that lesson. He had to, kind of give me that little push to say, hey, you got away from what you do. When in doubt, work harder. And I think what made me a fairly successful coach was that, whenever we lost, I never blamed anybody. It was always me. Somebody might miss a key free throw, and I never really thought of the kid missing the free throw. It was I didn't do enough drills to put him under pressure. So I was always looking inward to say, how do we fix what might be broken here? And so it was that ability to look inward, and then the core values of, hey, when in doubt, work harder. You are your own security. It's one of the great lessons I learned at USF. When I left coaching and I got offered an administrative job, I'm thinking, how am I going to do that? I have no experience in administration, but I learned a lesson. I was my own security because the way, I treated people and the work ethic that I established as a coach and the way you deal with people provided me with an opportunity that maybe I wouldn't have had I not taken that stance of, doing things the right way and being kind to people and trying to embrace people and form relationships that lead to team building.
Incredible, Coach. I mean, I think it's so great for high school coaches to hear that, right? That many of them are probably have been in similar situations to you, where they've had to work, during the day, and they coach basketball at night, and they've probably had those trials and tribulations of, either running their own business or trying to find a way to balance time. And to hear you speak of work ethic, get back to basics, just work ethic. And then, like you mentioned earlier too, sacrifice. You had to sacrifice, I'm sure, time with family and to work, 3 days in a row. That's an incredible sacrifice. And I think something that will really resonate with coaches out there. Coach, when you talked, obviously the career in high school, incredible career coaching high school. You, as I think many nationally prominent high school athletic programs, coaches get the call from a college. And I know you've probably had many leading up to making a decision to make the jump and go to college. And, just talk a little bit about what was that like in terms of, making the jump from high school to college? What did you learn about yourself? What did you learn about your profession from going from working with, 14 to 18-year-old kids to now, the 18 to 22-year-olds?
Yeah, it was an interesting leap, for me. I mean, I had almost taken the plunge twice before, once for a head coaching opportunity and the second to be an assistant coach. When Coach Walter, when Coach called me, I really wasn't thinking of doing it. Rex was a good friend, and he was recruiting some of our guys, and we were always in conversation. In fact, we talked a lot about the Princeton offense. I was into the Princeton offense, and I talked to Rex a little bit about it. And one day we're on the phone, and he casually just said, what's the chances of you coming over to help? And I said, none. There's no chance to come. And I've already, gone that route, and I'm happy where I am and all that. And he just kept pushing, and he said, take a week or two and think about it. And then my wife was like, we talked about it, and she thought, why not? Why not try another another opportunity, try something different, and try to make that impact over there. And so, I did. I made that move and enjoyed it. It was different though. It was different, being an assistant, and I had the defensive responsibilities and early on, which I really did enjoy doing. But, I found that, relationships are still the same. I think at that level, you're still dealing with young people. They're older, but they have issues, and some of their issues are more challenging. And I think you just have to be there for them and listen to their needs, help motivate them, and move them toward, going in the right direction. I think, the cultural stuff that we do, when you look at programs that sustain themselves every year, there are programs that have great culture. And I think that's not coached enough at the collegiate level. And I think the teams that are successful have that great culture that they create. I think our current coach is doing a great job with that, in terms of just creating a culture, with the COVID stuff that we're going through. I mean, that team has been spot on. They just listen, they do the things that they need to do, and they're responsible to each other. And I think those things will ultimately lead to wins. And I think that's sometimes at the higher level, at the pro level, I think sometimes we get away from that and think that, hey, players are just going to win. But there needs to be this core of development in anything, whether it's your business. I mean, you might have the best salesman in the world, but if he's not committed to other people and committed to the team, he may do well and his numbers may be great, but it's not going to strengthen your organization. So I think at that core, you really have to have that. Still, it's about the team and that commitment and culture. What do you stand for? So it gets back to the original question about what do you start with, in terms of building tradition, having your core values, in my case, discipline, love, and sacrifice, with an incredible work ethic. It's going to work. I mean, to me, we know what works. It's just people aren't willing to do it anymore. There's a fear of holding people accountable, and it really is frustrating to me sometimes when I see that people that don't want to be held accountable. And the reason they don't want to be held accountable is because if I hold Sean accountable, then Sean may hold me accountable. Where I'd like to go into it with the mindset of, hey, you hold me accountable. You tell me what I need to do. I'll never let you down. I'll be there for you. I'll do what you need me to do. And when you have that security and confidence and that love for each other to say, it's okay for you to hold me accountable. It's okay for you to challenge me because my grades aren't where they should be, or I'm disruptive in class, which takes away from the good of the team and what we're trying to accomplish. When you believe that those things do help you win, which I think they do, excellence is a habit, as you know, and it doesn't get turned on and off. If you just live your life with excellence and you're committed to doing it a certain way, it translates into every aspect of your life.
Absolutely. Coach, if I can, I want to drill down on something that you just said, because we've had conversations with just ourselves here at E-Team Sponsor internally. We talk a lot about culture being it's more important than strategy. We have a saying internally: culture kills strategy. We could have the best strategy, and like you said, we could have the best people possible, but if we don't have the right culture, then and that chemistry, then it's not going to work. I think something that we talk a lot about that's been a conundrum and something that we've tried to figure out, and I think every coach in the country, regardless of sport, would understand this. You mentioned love as one of your core values. I think love it's a tough one for people to really, I think, grasp. And you've talked about it a lot throughout the course of this conversation. What if we were to really just zero in on love and say, what is it? How do you build that? How do you ingrain that as a part of your culture? What are some things that coaches, administrators, athletic directors are listening to our podcast as well? How do you break down or compartmentalize love? How do you give that so that people can tangibly go do something with love as a core value?
Well, I think part of that is that understanding that I will do anything for you. I think that, with my teams, they know and they still know. I have guys that I've coached, that are in their 40s, and 50s, that still know if they need something from the old coach, they can call and I'll do whatever I can to help them, But there was also this understanding that love's a two-way street. Are you going to be there for me? Are we going to be there for each other? Can we count on each other? I know when I first started coaching, I mean, in any leadership position, I think you have to improve and you migrate and you change, right? And you adapt to your situations. I was quite a different coach when I started in 1990. I was a lot more hardcore. It was my way or the highway. At the end of my high school career, it was really more about, Jeff Powers, one of my favorite players, played at Cal. He once said, he told someone, he's like your wise old grandfather. He sits in his director chair and, he's got his green tea and animal crackers and, very kind and loving guy, and I would call kids over during a game, and I would put my arm around them and say, Sean, do you think I love you? And Sean would say, yes, I do, coach. I go, no, do you really think I love you? Yeah. And he'd say, yes. And I said, do you think I would do anything for you the rest of your life? And the kid would say, yes, I do. I go, well, can you get me one rebound? Just get one rebound for us, Yeah. And I think it was that little putting it in perspective that, hey, this is all about, go do the extra, dive on that loose ball for your friends. So I think, love is that, you just had a little girl, right? And that little girl comes into the world knowing that Sean is going to do anything for you for the rest of your life. And when she grows older and she realizes that, hey, I appreciate what these people do for me. And I think, what we have, the difference, you're dealing with adults, I'm dealing with children, trying to instill that in kids sometimes take a long time to figure out that you're loved. I mean, my turning point in my life was being 17 years old. And I was an All-American quarterback and, dreaming of going to Notre Dame and being recruited by everyone in the country on one of the best high school teams in the state of New Jersey. And 2 minutes into my senior year, I snapped my collarbone in half. And my the season's over and my football career is over because I said, I'm never playing football again. This is insane. One hit and it's all over, right? And I'm looking at all my dreams and aspirations going to Notre Dame are over. And I remember that night going back to my house and being, in my room, and my girlfriend, who's now my wife, there with me, right? And I'm telling her, I'm never playing football again. I'm going to play basketball, and this is the route that I'm going to take. And all my teammates had come to see me, but I knew, I wasn't coming back to play football anymore. And then, everyone left, and it was just me in my room. And I remember laying in my bed, and I heard my mother and my 3 brothers in the living room crying. And I remember thinking, there's a war in Vietnam, we have all these issues in the world, and my family is downstairs crying because I can't fulfill my dream of playing football, and something that may be so insignificant when you look at the greater picture. But at that time, it was my life. It was the most important thing in the world. And to hear my brothers, who I competed with, we were very competitive, 4 boys, all college athletes. We competed with each other, but it was that day that I realized how loved I was by my mom and dad and my brothers. And they didn't ever change their behavior. It was just my maturation and the realization that they got to get this back from me because they care so much about me.
Wow, that's incredible. What a great story, Coach. I mean, it's incredible to think, that, during that time in your life at 17 years old, we talk about it being such an impressionable age, and, incredible that you can go back and you can pinpoint that one point in your life where that change and that maturation process really started for you. That's incredible.
And Sean, you're a great interviewer because I have told thousands of stories in my lifetime. That's the first time I've ever told that story. So that's a new one there. So you brought that out.
Good. I'm glad. Well, Coach, I can tell you then my parents will be proud then, because my media studies broadcasting degree has now officially paid for itself. Well, Coach, looking to wrap up a few things here, and I think it'd be really great to, rewind a little bit. We'll go back to your De La Salle days and talk about, and I think this will be really, really helpful for the high school basketball coaches that are listening, and especially the ones at the private school. De La Salle is a special place. I talk about it all the time in terms of my 1 year there. To your point about being 17 and knowing when something changed in your life. My life changed at 14 years old on that campus, and it was a really special place, always has been. I think, you had a great opportunity to coach basketball there for a long time. You had a great opportunity to work with some great coaches across the entire athletic department, but some really incredible leaders throughout the institution, from the president to the principal. You get to work with advancement, you get to work with an athletic director, those nuances of being at a private school. Maybe talk to us a little bit about, really how important were those relationships that you had to navigate, to manage, to foster with, presidents, principals, advancement, athletic directors, other coaches on the campus. And just talk to us about that.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges for coaches at any level today. You really have to be a better communicator, and you have to keep people in the loop as to what you're doing. Now, again, when I started, that wasn't the case. It was pretty hands off. You're doing your thing, but as things have changed, and you have to communicate. You have to keep parents in the loop. I had a high school coach call me a couple of years ago, and he said, I'm having issues with parents and and all this and playing time and going through all his litany of problems. And he said, how would you solve it? I said, at what age? I said, when I was your age, I'd probably approach it the way you're approaching it. I said, now that I've gotten away from that, I wouldn't approach it the way you're approaching it. I would communicate better with people and keep people in the loop as to what you're doing. And obviously the challenges at the high school level is there is a lot of transition. So, I worked with many different principals and worked with different athletic directors and different presidents of the high school, and they're all a little different. They all come from a different perspective. I remember Brother Chris Brady was one of my favorite principals, and he was great. And we got off. My first meeting with him, I didn't think it went very well. I said, I don't think this guy likes me. And I'm trying to figure him out, and he's trying to figure me out, and we just communicated with each other, and he became one of my best friends, quite frankly. And he was a great principal, and I think he would be the first to say too, he's not like, a rah-rah athletic guy. He really has an incredible balance of leadership, and yet, he, gave it a chance and really looked at what we were doing and appreciated what we were doing. But there was this wonderful communicative aspect of working with him that really advanced me, quite frankly. He was like somebody that really mentored me and how to be a better communicator with parents, I think I always had the kid part of it down, but dealing with parents and other administration, he was really a big help to me in guiding me and moving me to a better space in that. But you can't underplay that enough. I mean, you really do have to communicate, keep people in the loop. I think, when in doubt, communicate in anything you're doing. I was honestly in my external relations team today, I was telling one of my marketing guys that you just can't communicate enough. That's one thing you can't overdo. With your customers, people want to hear from you, they want to talk to you, and at the end of the day, it's the communication is what's building the relationships. So when you do have issues that come up, there's a level of trust because you've already done it. And if people know that you genuinely care about their space, even though it may not be what your space is, they tend to work better with you. And I'll conclude it with this too. In education, what I've learned is there's a lot of silos in education, right? Everybody has their thing that they do. And I think those that can bring those silos together and break down those barriers, and you do that by letting people realize that, the most important thing in the world is not our basketball team. Our development team is very, very important. They have just as great a role in the success of the organization as the people on the court do. The people that are doing the ticket sales. I mean, all these people have a valuable role. It's like when you look at a football team and your quarterback gets all the glory, but my high school coach taught me at a very young age, a quarterback is nothing without his 10 little brothers or 10 big brothers. Quarterback is nothing without his 10 big brothers. And that is true. And when you look at any organization, there is value in everything that everyone does. And great communication makes sure that people know that and they're aware how significant their role is.
This has been great, Coach. I mean, you've weaved such a great, I think, foundation in terms of, like going back to discipline and love. I think you've got to have the discipline to communicate. And with that communication, like you said, that can strengthen relationships and trust and cooperation. that's all weaving this cultural foundation, right? That can build something truly special. And it's not a wonder hearing you explain all this, why you had so much success, obviously on the court, but also just professionally, off the court. I know we didn't get a chance to talk much about Excel basketball camp, but that was I think I was a third or fourth grader, and it was my dad said, if you want to try your hand at basketball, or however old I was, let's go to Excel basketball camp. And I did it one year, had great experience there, but I know Excel basketball camp has been really pivotal for a lot of young, I'd say young aspiring, basketball players, but I know that it was more than just basketball and why you
Right.
ran that camp. But maybe talk to the listeners just real quickly about Excel basketball camp, why you put it together, because I think it's a great story.
Well, I think I get back to, why it was created. You go back to the tradition. Everything we talked about is woven together and intertwined, right? And I started Excel because a coach that had a huge impact on me, Coach Stu Aberdeen, who I met when I was 15 and changed my life with his words on the winning edge. And when he passed away, I was on a business trip to Hawaii when I was in the book business. And I read this little paragraph that Coach Aberdeen had passed away at 49 years old of a massive heart attack. And he was the head coach at Marshall University. And I was so upset that this man who had such a pivotal point in my life and on countless other kids got a little paragraph. And that night, I swear, I dreamt my camp right down to the logo. And I called my brother Jerry in the morning and said, I'm going to start a camp. And he said, Frank, you're not even coaching. And I said, doesn't matter. I'm starting this camp. And I did. I said, the whole philosophy of the camp is going to be to keep Coach Aberdeen's message alive. And so, like you said, the camp really isn't just about basketball. It's more than that. And I'd say most people in this county have some connection to Excel. It's something gone there at one point in time, right? And so, the first year we had 37 kids. We've been sold out for 40 years, just ever since that time. But I think the success of it goes back to a quote, and I was interviewed one time, what makes our camp different than any other camp? And I said, the success of any venture will be determined by the spirit in which it was entered. And I started the camp to honor someone and to create a positive business, and to create a great opportunity for kids to learn other things besides the game, to give these little speeches with a motivational message, and also sort of a skill teaching activity for them too, to take something out about the way they should live their lives. And so I think that really is why this camp has been so successful for so many years and continues to thrive, because it really wasn't about a business. I never went into that thinking this could be a business or a money-making opportunity. It was really to serve kids. And I think when you do that, even, in what you're doing, I mean, you can look at it two ways. Are you going out and making money selling sponsorships, or are you providing kids with incredible opportunities to enhance their sport experience that they may not be able to get in a well-funded school? That's what you do. You're providing futures to kids, but it's all about perspective, about how you see what you do. And those people in your organization that look at it that way, that I'm going to put this extra in so a kid in this community can experience something that maybe he couldn't normally, great things will happen.
It's so true, Coach. And I think it's, I'm trying to think back as to exactly when I started it. I can't remember if it was 1987 or 1990, somewhere around there. But I think there's those profound moments that any I'll say athlete has by experiencing something like that, like going to a camp. And I think the thing that most people can take away from just listening to you share that story, why you created the camp, there's coaches out there that I'm sure have similar, impactful people that have had a meaningful impact on their life. And they maybe they've been thinking about what they could do, how they could channel that, how they could create some additional impact. And I think that that's definitely an inspiring message for many coaches that are out there that might be, sitting there thinking, hey, what can I do? And it's starting a camp like this. And again, not to do it for making money. It's the same reason that Steve and Randy and I sat down and said, hey, we want to be able to go into inner city programs and be able to make sure that they have the best student athlete experience. And to your point, Coach, we talk about these last 6 months have been crazy. This pandemic has been really a challenge for many. But we look at schools like Aquinas High School in San Bernardino, where we were able to help them raise $40,000 for their football program, and their president gave us a call and said, this is going to transcend football. This is going to impact our campus in so many ways, and it's going to create such a better experience for everyone in this Aquinas community. So I think to your point, if we, perspective so important, and it offers up so much more than just the game, that we're either a part of.
And when you look at schools and you talk about the intertwined nature that we're trying to talk about, I'm in external relations. I deal with the same things that you are dealing with.
Yeah.
That sometimes I think people have to understand, those donors, that you're not just giving to the football team. You're giving to the English department, because the assets that are going to here that are alleviated by doing that provide other things for other kids. So it truly is intertwined. And now more than ever, not to make a commercial here, but now more than ever, we need people to step up, because the impact of COVID-19 that it has had on athletic programs has been absolutely devastating. And there's never been a greater time for people to make that personal sacrifice, because everyone's been hit by this at some level, but to make that sacrifice to give to kids, because that's our future. And I think we all have that duty, as I started this whole thing off today, with modeling behavior, to show people that, maybe I'm not making what I made before because of COVID, but I still can give to someone to try to make their lives better. And in essence, that's your legacy. That's who you are. You give a piece of yourself to others and let them have great experiences.
Coach, it'd be great, and definitely don't want to make a commercial out of it, but I think it's just great because it's a topic, right? It's where I think a lot of coaches, whether you're at a high school or college, where they're at mentally right now is it okay to ask people for money? And I would share just a quick anecdote, and I'd love to get some more feedback from you in terms of what you're seeing on the campus there at USF. But we've seen in the last 6 months the resiliency, the spirit of just the human nature to respond in time of crisis. And we have seen, just in a 6-month period, the average donation has doubled. What programs are raising is double what it has been historically. And I think that speaks to people recognize and understand that there is an opportunity for them to do more and to support, like you said, the children, because they are our future. How have things been going at USF in the last 6 months? What have you guys maybe identified as opportunities, pivoted, or how are things going with regards to bringing in the much needed funding?
Well, the university really, donations are going to the COVID fund. So we're trying to direct things toward that, because it has impacted at so many levels. From kids not needing the resources to study from home, from support. We have kids that the university really has living on campus that really don't have anywhere to go. So we are providing a lot of services for the limited number of kids that have to be on campus, but also, the impact level, it just across the board, it's hit so many people. So right now, the COVID fund really is, what we are gearing things toward to just try to help with that. And that encompasses many, many different things. Obviously, the financial hit that all the schools have hit, just for the NCAA not distributing, what they've distributed in years past, because we didn't have March Madness, has been significant. But I think, the people in academics understand, and I know particularly in athletics, it's adversity. We've all been through it. We keep getting hit with things, but you've got to respond. You can't make excuses, and you just got to do the best with what you can. But at the core of it, if your spirit is to love and serve others, it'll work out. You approach it every day with that confidence.
Love it. Well, Coach, we'll wrap things up. Let's talk real quick about just a message of positivity. I think that one of the things that we've done, I'm a big proponent of John Gordon and a number of the books that he's written, but he talks about the power of positivity. And I think for a lot of our coaches and athletic directors that are going to be, watching this or listening to this, Coach, what kind of message would you share with them in terms of really just the power of positive? People are looking maybe to take action with some of the things that you've shared with them today. What message of positivity would you share with coaches and athletic directors?
I mean, I think you have to realize that, coaching is a gift. I always refer to it as a ministry, that it is so much more than just coaching. And I think every coach, administrator at some point in their life hits that point when you realize that, you don't measure people by scores and by records. It really goes well beyond that. And I just think if you have that approach to competing, it makes it a lot better for you and easier for you, because you really do look at, are you serving kids? Are you giving them what they need? I mean, what an amazing time right now where kids need you the most. I mean, I think coaches and anyone in academia right now, we need you. We need you to lead. We need you to guide. There are kids that are confused, right? There are kids that are going through incredible challenges, and it's your duty to elevate those kids. I oftentimes talk to coaches and they get frustrated with, I can't get them to do this. And I always say they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're 15 years old. They're confused, right? They don't get it. It's your job to move them toward that. And it gets back to the accountability we talked to earlier, that, if my child as a parent isn't doing what I am asking them to do, then I need to do it a little differently. I always mention these coaches that, I spoke for USA Basketball at a clinic, and I mentioned, how many times have you heard that coach on the sideline that says, I've told you that 1,000 times? And he's doing that to tell the fans that I see it too. I'm not dumb here. I get the idea, that, and so, you're covering yourself. I've told you that 1,000 times. And what I hear is, you know what, well, you've told me that 1,000 times and I haven't gotten it yet. So maybe you should change your approach to how you're teaching me. And so that's what I think with coaches is, kids need you more than ever. Find the way to reach each child, and it's going to be different. There's no cookie cutter approach. I dealt with kids who were doctors' sons who had great lives, and I dealt with kids that were from the inner cities that didn't have, a mom or dad that was guiding them, and those kids have to be treated differently. And you have to find that way to push that child's button, whatever it is, and motivate them and give them hope that they can be, regardless of what their background is. They need your love, they need your support, and they need you to model the appropriate behavior and show them the way.
Awesome. Man, well, Coach, we really appreciate you sharing all the wisdom that you did today. I mean, this is going to be so impactful for, for our clients, our listeners, coaches, and athletic directors across the country. We really appreciate you coming on and sharing as much as you did. We wish you nothing but the best out there at USF, and obviously we'd love to have you come back on again. I know there's plenty that we didn't even get to that I've had the pleasure of listening to before, and the rest of our team has as well. So, but Coach, we really appreciate you sharing everything that you did. Coach, real quick before we let you go, let's go ahead and share just so people can follow you on Twitter. It's at Coach Allocco, ALLOCCO on Twitter. And then Coach's website is frankallocco.com, where also Coach has his podcast that he's just started. So Coach, I think I'll give you a second here if you want to pub the new podcast. I believe that's the Real Lessons Learned from Sports.
Yeah, the podcast really just happened because without having physical camps this year, I would talk to children and I'd say, what do you miss? Well, they say, we miss your stories. We miss the little stories with the moral lessons at the end of them, and I thought, well, I can bring stories. So I started doing them in the beginning of the pandemic and just put out one a week. And I have been doing that consistently with a positive message. And so we created a podcast called Keeping It Frank. Keeping It Frank.
Keeping It Frank. I love it.
Yeah, that has all the podcasts. I think we've done about 20 of them, that we put out on a weekly basis. And it started out going to campers and families, and then I expanded it to coaches and friends and whatnot. So it's people are enjoying the stories. And I think what's really been fun for me is when I tell the story, I'll get emails of people telling me similar experiences that they have had. So it's provoking a lot of great memories in other people. So I've been very happy that it's been well received and that it's inspiring others to take a look at the things that they've done as well.
That's awesome. Well, good. Well, we'll make sure, again, it's frankallocco.com. Great insight, unbelievable amount and wealth of information on Coach's site. Coach, we'll have to definitely get you back on because we're going to have to, I know plenty of guys that played for you either at Northgate or De La Salle, and talking about the annual Christmas poem and some other things. So we'll definitely look forward to having you come on again sometime here in the future. And again, best of luck with everything, and we'll look forward to catching up with you down the road.
Thanks, Sean, and good luck with the little one there. Be a great leader
Thank
for
you.
him.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Coach. I will. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.